Alright guys, really quick before this video gets started, if you ordered a shirt from my new brand, Sullivan & Company, thank you so much. I launched the website and was completely overwhelmed with orders. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your support. As I mentioned in the video where I launched these, I had a limited quantity of shirts. I shipped those out almost immediately, as quick as I could to a lot of you guys. A lot of you already have your shirts and you say you love them as much as I do. For those of you that have put in orders and haven't received your shirts yet, not to worry, I have a huge order of shirts coming in. Hopefully end of this week, maybe early next week, and as soon as I have them in hand, I'll stay up all night if I have to, getting them out to you guys. Just be patient with me. I appreciate your patience and your support, but I didn't know you guys were gonna love the shirts this much, but I'm thankful for that. But just bear with me. If you guys don't have your shirt yet, trust me, it's coming. And for those of you that haven't ordered a shirt yet, there is going to be so much inventory here that I should be able to get any additional orders out, you know, same day, next day kind of thing. So if you guys haven't already, get your shirt at sullivan-co.com. Get the best-selling logo shirt, get the Brotella shirt, get the Just Needs a Clutch shirt, or the While You're In There Cafe shirt. All right, let's get into some Marauder content. I'm taking a break from the C6, which we're doing coilovers on, which you might see after this video, I think. I'm not sure, I'm waiting on parts for that, and I'm itching to get this thing running. And I think I've got everything I need. In the last video, we finally got this fully built Terminator long block into my low mileage 2004 Marauder. Got the intake on there, got the fuse box relocated, got the AC pump on, power steering pump, the inner accessory belt, everything is bolted in, everything is ready to go. We just need everything else. I tried to get a new fan, the correct Marauder fan, at a junkyard, but everything was closed for 4th of July, so I ended up just ordering a new one and some other parts, which are all here now. This is a fan that I got off Rock Auto, so these are the tabs that I was interested in to mount the power steering reservoir and the coolant reservoir. Got some cooling hoses, got a coolant hose coupler so that I can make something work with all of the extra hoses that I have and hopefully not spend basically any money. Got some tools here to extend our battery harness since we're moving the battery from here, as this space is obviously now occupied, over to here. Some positive cable. This is all nice copper, I think 2 gauge or something like that. Same thing with the negative. Got a new tool from Jeff Bezos here to crimp some couplers and things like that so we can extend the factory battery harness and make everything look as factory as possible. Ordered a couple oil filters for my oil filter relocation, which are apparently wrong. So ended up stopping at the auto parts store today and got the correct one that's gonna fit. Hopefully this is the right Gates green belt for the supercharger. Got some other stuff here we will get into later. You guys already saw the battery in the tray. I'm itching to get to work on this thing. I can't wait to hear it run, so I think I'm gonna start with the cooling hoses. I'm just looking at my short list over there. Let's get right to work. Well, it arguably looks worse, more messy, but I've made some progress, big progress at that. The battery is almost officially relocated. So I started over here. Boom. Here's the Mustang battery tray is relocated and solid on the driver's side. Once again, and probably not for the last time on this project, I used my riv nut tool and made a couple of mounts to mount the battery here onto the rad support, and it is really solid. It's good to go. I think this is where most guys doing this swap or an Eaton swap put the battery. And if you go with the Mustang size battery, you can keep the washer fluid bottle. So a very stock appearing setup here. So that's done. And I plopped in my new Motorcraft battery from Wallace Ford Parts. And got to work doing the difficult part, which is completely modifying and redoing the battery harness to extend it from where it would be over there to over here. So obviously had to run a longer power wire. This is going to go all the way around down to the starter. So there's that one. Also had to extend the wire that normally would have gone about 3 inches from the battery to the fuse box, which now runs from the fuse box all the way through here to this guy right there. So this is using some, I think the original is like 6 gauge or 8 gauge. I ordered 4 gauge, which is probably way overkill, but good to have good quality copper wire for something like this. So this one goes to the starter, this one goes to the fuse box. The alternator cable, I don't think we're gonna have to extend at all because normally it would have gone to right about this area right here. So this is the untouched factory cable. Plenty of length to get down here to the alternator. Ground cable I extended, now just goes from right here. Again, extended it plenty. I think I'm going to put it right on the driver's side engine mount, which is where it would be on the Cobras from the factory. And then this guy, I think we'll just, if I pivot this around, I think we'll just add this anywhere on the rad support here. Already got my green Ford ground bolt ready to go. Starter circuit is all set, extended. So this is, everything is where it needs to be. So the only thing left to do is I need to run to the store and get a terminal to terminate that engine block ground, and then I'm going to pull this all back out, loom everything, make everything look nice and clean, like it came this way from the factory. That's the whole theme of this build, is an OEM, looking setup here. Also wrestled this massive fan in here, and it is close. It is really close, but it fits. And more importantly, now we have a mount for our power steering and my brand new coolant reservoir. This is the factory Marauder, Crown Vic, Panther, whatever. Coolant reservoir mounts nicely right up here on the shroud and looks factory because it is. Moving under here, made some progress utilizing all of the hoses that came with the car. So this actually worked out perfectly. This lower rad hose connects right over here to the coupler, which goes right into the oil filter housing or oil cooler housing, using an existing hose I had, and then this hose that I think probably came with the supercharger kit. And then this hose perfectly comes up here, and I'll just cut it to link right in to the coolant reservoir right there. Power steering hose I think is going to hook up fine. I might have to get a little bit of a coupler and an extension too, but it's always tight. It's tight in this area on the Mustangs as well. There's just a lot of stuff going on here, but I think we're going to be able to make it work with basically all hoses that I had or came with the car, and really not spend any money on that. So let's keep going. Let's wrap up this battery relocation, get the harness all loomed up, hopefully finish up the cooling lines and the power steering lines, get the coolant crossover made, and then just see what else is on the short list. There's still a lot of work to do here, so let's get back to it. back in. Let's put power to this thing. For probably the first time in 8 years, other than hooking up a jump pack to roll the window down to get it in here. But complete new battery harness, new battery. Battery's on the opposite side of the way it left the factory. Here goes. Heard a chime inside. Looks like we got a dome light. It's a good sign. Oh yeah. All right. First I want to roll this window down. Guess I need key power to do that. Yeah, baby. Wonder if we got a CD in there. Oh, we do. Wonder what it is. Probably copyright. All right, big success. Battery relocation done. Car didn't burn down. Everything seems to be working. And the reason I tried to prioritize this right now is because I'm trying to get the base file to my tuner so that he can write me a startup tune so we can get this thing started when we're ready, so that he can work on that while I'm working on this. We obviously need power to the PCM to do that. I don't think that we need any of the engine harness hooked up to have, pull the file from the ECM. I wouldn't think. Anyways, we'll see what HP Tuner says, but let's get in the car, try and pull that file. It's probably 1,000 million check engine lights because there's literally no engine harness, but hopefully, God, do we need to hook up the engine harness? Let's hook up to the OBD2 port, see what happens. All right, well, basically this is my first time sitting in the Marauder. This thing is like a couch. So comfortable. All right, found the OBD2 port down there. I can't see, oh, I do see green light. So we obviously have power at the OBD2 port. Let's see if she will connect. Survey says, oh, it's doing the thing. You know what? That battery terminal is hanging on by a thread. Makes me a little nervous. Probably should have checked that before we started reading this. Hopefully we don't brick the ECU, but nobody move. We'll just stay real still in here. It is doing the thing though. Sweet. All right, so I'm gonna get this file, send the file, the base file, or whatever the file is. It probably was tuned for the Vortec kit that was on it, but basically the file that is in the ECM right now, I'm gonna send that to my tuner so he can write me a startup tune for this thing with the 60-pound injectors and the SCT MAF and stuff like that. And then hopefully send me something back that we can stab back in this thing, and when we're ready, fire it up. But in the meantime, let's keep going. Keep working on that list. More importantly, just went through all of the CDs, and first of all confirmed it is 808s and Heartbreak. So, before Kanye completely went off the deep end and, kind of went downhill. The other one I'm pretty sure is Tupac, and the other four I haven't got into yet, but I like this guy. Solid taste in music. All right, let's start with the coolant crossover and see what else we get into. quick update. I know it doesn't look a lot different, but I got a lot done over here in this area. This ABS module was a big hurdle getting this thing modified, or the bracket rather modified to fit with this Cobra alternator without having to modify any of these lines or anything. Little cut here, little bend there. This thing fits. We've got clearance to the alternator. Basically eliminated this whole side, but this thing is sock rawled. And then down here on the frame, spaced out the bolts a little bit, or the bracket mount on that side. Notched this thing out a little bit, but put this massive 24mm factory nut over the factory bracket. And like I said, this thing is solid. So we made room for the ABS module. It's plugged in, ran the wires nice and neat and tight under the battery tray. While I was in this area, I decided to look into the mass airflow wiring, which needs to be extended over there. And then we have those 2 wires for the IAT sensor that need to make their way up here. And then I found this guy that looks to me like an IAT sensor, which the Marauder does not have because it's built into the MAF. So I was like, why is this thing here? Split the loom down a little bit, and it turns out that this person did exactly what I'm gonna do up here and took those 2 gray wires and was probably using this aftermarket IAT sensor on the Vortec blower that was on this car in a past life. So easy enough for me. I took those 2 wires, which were already stripped, and loomed them nicely down here beyond the ABS bracket, followed the brake lines up here, boom. And we got our Ford plug here that we got from Mike at Walls Ford Parts, and all that's left to do is connect, I think it's these outer 2 ones to the 2 gray wires here, and we should have an IAT2 reading from the back of the Eaton here. Loomed up some other stuff, cleaned up some other wires, moved this, whatever this thing is here that says Marauder, used to be like down here, which obviously wouldn't work with the battery tray, so kind of pivoted that up, moved it up here. I think it's related to the air suspension maybe, I don't know. But while I've got all of my wiring stuff out, I think that I'm going to tackle the engine harness. Like I said, the mass airflow sensor needs to come over here where the intake's gonna be. If you guys remember from the last video, the Marauder intake comes down on this side. So all of the engine stuff that would be over here in the Marauder, like the TPS, the IAC, the mass airflow, all that stuff on the Cobra is over here. So on our engine harness here, which we labeled the last time, we need to extend all of that wiring over to the passenger side. And then the mass airflow, which is in the harness down here, will probably run right over there. But yeah, there's still a lot to do on this not so short list, so let's get back to it. It's been 2 weeks since I checked in with you guys. I'm sorry. All right? Got some coilovers on the C6, launched a website, got some merch out, worked on the wife's SQ7, got that thing all blacked out, took a vacation up to the lake. But we are finally back on the Marauder, making some progress on this wiring harness. First off, here's a great example of why I never throw wiring stuff away. This harness is actually from the The center console in the Expedition, or the Junkyard Expedition that is now in the Lightning, I think it went to like some rear HVAC and radio controls. And what looks like trash is actually full of good quality OEM wire of all different colors. And the reason that's useful as opposed to, you know, using something like this, your standard black and red, is, for example, when I'm relocating or extending the TPS, which uses 3 or 4 different color wires, you know, red and black is not going to cut it. So if you have 4 different colors here, you can then write down which color goes to which on the original harness, and that makes it easier to link it up on the other end. This is actually a GM mass airflow sensor harness that I found. And then over here for the fuel rail pressure sensor, that's from the Expedition harness down there. And I'm probably going to do the same thing for the alternator plug and all the other stuff I got to do here. Normally I use crimp and then heat shrink connectors. It's a really good solid connection, wired the whole 69 Camaro that way. A lot of your factory connections are crimp. But in this case, I actually busted out the old soldering iron and did a couple solder connections. And I can highlight why I did that right here is when you have a bunch of connections like this, they're all stacked up on each other. You can see the thickness difference in one of these connections versus how slim the solder connection is. And I want it slim because I want to loom all this nice and tight and look factory, and we don't want a giant, you know, bulge right here where there's 6 of these crimp connections. So got the old soldering iron out, did some soldering and shrink wrapping. Here's an example of that on the fuel rail pressure sensor wiring over here. Decided to go with orange, black, and light brown on this one. Worked well, perfect. So now next, I think I'm going to do the alternator, which is going to require some research since the Cobra alternator uses 2 wires and the Marauder alternator uses 3. I think this alternator from the factory, the Marauder alternator, which would have gone right here, is controlled by the PCM. It's a, what do you call it, pulse width modulated alternator. Basically, the computer is telling the alternator how much to charge, whereas the Cobra alternator is either, hey, you're charging or you're not. So I've been looking online at some wiring diagrams and some stuff that people have done in the past, and as is tradition with this swap, there's not a lot out there, but I think there might be a way that I can use a resistor and, you know, one of the wires maybe trimmed off does nothing. I'm not really sure. But we're going to have to figure that out. Mass airflow, pretty straightforward. Like I said, we're not using 2 of those wires because they're going to be the IAT, which I think we have pretty much at least where it needs to go. And then the power steering connector. You can see both of these are from Motorcraft, which of course I got from Mike over at Walls Ford Parts. As always, link will be in the description. I think the code is Chris25 for 25% off shipping, and you're not going to beat his prices on OEM Ford parts. This one is a perfect example. Previous owner told me when he removed the motor from the car, he broke off one of the power steering, or down there on the rack, there's like a steering pressure connector or something. It's right here in the harness, so you can see that's what's left. So, of course, Mike knew exactly what I needed, got me the part I needed, and now all we have to do is solder on or crimp on this new connector down here, then we can plug that in down there on the factory steering rack. So let's keep going with this wiring and then see what else is on the list. Getting close, kind of, sort of. The old short list was getting a little bit too long and messy, so I made a new one. This should be basically all that we have left to do before we are ready to start this thing. Wiring is roughly done, got all of our sensors relocated or, you know, extended, wires extended, things like that. Alternator, I have very roughly done. I actually will, of course, tape this up, but I'm still kind of guessing on the wiring. Basically followed some diagrams that I found online, and I'm just gonna see if it charges and or see if we get a battery light, and we'll just go from there. Got the power steering sensor rewired with a obscure document that I found online for the polarity of that one. So that's all done. Just got my supercharger belt on finally got the right length supercharger belt on this thing. Alternator is tightened down, alternator bracket is tightened down. Underneath the car, got the starter wiring hooked up, got the transcooler lines all installed. You can see them down there connected. Cleaned up a couple power steering things where the bracketry needed to be adjusted for the Terminator front dress. Power steering cooler is hooked up. Power steering return line is all hooked up down there. Our coolant line to the oil filter adapter is on. We are making some serious headway. So up next, I think I'm gonna focus on some of this stuff here. I gotta get the reservoirs in the car. So the coolant reservoir, supercharger reservoir. The radiator hoses, or power steering hoses, are basically done. I can probably cross that off, I think. Radiator hoses, I just need to find a clamp for that guy right there on the bottom of the radiator. And then we need to do this thing, which is gonna go to the reservoir here. A couple EGR things, of course, fluids. And then I think I'm also gonna focus right here, new O2 sensors and extensions. So the mid pipe and X pipe, which are currently out in the shed right now, just out of my way. If you guys recall when this car first showed up, they were basically just hanging in the engine bay, and there was dirt and spiders and all sorts of stuff sitting in there from 8 years of this car sitting. So at the same time I ordered the belt from Rock Auto, I got 2 brand new Denso O2 sensors. These are your upstream O2 sensors. And then these are the O2 extensions that came with the Stainless Works headers so that our factory wiring will reach. So we got a fresh motor. Always good to, I guess, start with a fresh set of O2 sensors, especially if yours were basically sitting outside for 8 years. After that, we'll come back to the list and see what else there is, but let's keep rolling. I'm getting excited. I keep stepping on this loom. I'm excited to get this thing running and to clean up a little bit, so let's keep rolling. Oh my goodness, we are getting so close to firing this thing up. I can feel it in my loins. Got brand new Denso O2 sensors installed on the long tube headers, and didn't even need the O2 extensions. The factory wires work just fine. Did some fabrication work. First of all, got my EGR plate, block-off plate, made, painted, and installed. Also had to modify the throttle bracket, and still have a little work to do here to get the cruise control cable to fit. But basically, you need to make that little L bracket and add it to the factory Cobra throttle bracket to take up the slack. I think there's maybe there's another bracket you could use. I think I saw a part number somewhere online, but for 30 minutes of fabrication and free from the scrap pile, we now have got our throttle body connected to our pedal in the car. What else? Got our brand new OEM reservoir hooked up, got the coolant line hooked up down there, made a little line right here. All of the coolant lines I've paid $0 for. They're all just lines I've had, lines that came with the car. Got a thermostat in our On3 Performance coolant crossover, which if I remember from my Cobra days is actually just like a LT1 or 350 small block thermostat. I did a 180 degree thermostat there. Batteries back in. I've got the fuse box cover open here because I'm trying to figure out a way to jump the fuel pump so that we can get what I expect is 8-year-old fuel out of the tank. The dash says we have, I don't know, 1/8 of a tank, but we want to get as much of that out as possible. My guess is it looks like deck varnish. So now I'm also starting to work on some of all the vacuum connections that are back here. Here's my brake booster, which also goes to some sort of vacuum distribution block. Got this evap thing just randomly plugged in for now. I gotta figure that out. And I have to get vacuum to the fuel rail pressure sensor and the boost bypass valve. And I found this random vacuum harness. I don't know if this is from one of the Cobras that I've owned or another random project. Again, good reason to not, throw stuff away. This has got the 90-degree vacuum connections that I need to get all those vacuum lines done. Probably unloom this, get rid of what we don't need, and make it all nice and clean. Like I said, we just need a connection here. I think this top port, blocked off this for now until I figure out a PCV system. I believe this is the boost port down here. And then we might end up blocking that off for now as well. We'll see, still have to figure that out. Other than that, we are basically ready to crank this thing over. We need to add oil and maybe some coolant. And for oil, we're going with Driven BR30 break-in motor oil. Some guys don't do this. Some guys just run regular Dino oil. The one thing you don't want to do is run synthetic oil in your new build. It's too slippery, for lack of a scientific term. You want those rings to be able to seat properly to the cylinder walls. This stuff apparently has some magic in it that's going to give you the best chance. Proper foundation for maximum durability and performance. Chemically seals pistons and rings. It's got zinc in it. I don't know. This is what we want right here. And we're going to be loading that into my Motive power bleeder, which is now already hooked up to the oil filter adapter so that we can hopefully fill this thing up, pump it up, and prime the whole motor with oil. If you guys remember the blue Cobra project, remember I filled it up with oil, cranked it, with no spark plugs in it or anything. Okay, good news, no bad noises. Bad news, still not seeing anything on the gauge. Never built oil pressure. I think these modular 4.6s are really not designed to build oil pressure on cranking. So I ended up priming it and then just going for it and starting the car, and it made oil pressure immediately. So this time around, I'm going to prime it using the garden sprayer method, if you will, or in this case, my Motive brake bleeder. And then once everything else is ready, we're just going to hit the key and go. Oh yeah, I got my startup tune loaded from Turbo Mike down in Charlton, Mass. So that's good to go. A couple things left to do. Let's keep going. Ew. All right, spent the last 45 minutes trying to figure out how to jump the relay, and now we got Kanye playing. Could not figure out how to jump the fuel pump. Tried powering it with my Milwaukee battery, which has worked on the Cobras before. Tried jumping the relay, ended up frying a fuse, and I think I've wasted enough time, so I think I'm just gonna cycle the key 100 times until the tank is pretty much empty. But right now, oh God, no. Oh, not on the nice blue valve covers. Yep, just as we expected, it looks and smells like deck varnish. Looks like a piss jug.
Don't worry about it. Way of the road, buddy.
Way of the road, fellas. Anyways, let's do that 100 more times and then move on to what's next. Oh my God, it's getting worse. Looks like apple juice. Whoops. It's funny that this thing looks worse than when I put it in, but we have gotten so much done. This thing is ready to crank. I say crank because I don't want to fully start this thing yet. If you guys have been on the channel for any amount of time, you know that I usually like to just crank it over on the starter, even if it's just for 2 or 3 or 5 seconds, just to make sure we don't hear any bad noises before this thing lights off. Also, I've unplugged all the injectors so that we can prime the fuel system, make sure there's no leaks. There shouldn't be, it's all factory stuff. But again, we don't want this thing to fully start yet. There's a couple more things we have to do before this thing starts, but I've looked everything over. I've made my vacuum lines here, capped off what I don't need. This is a line that I'm going to use, or is going to go to this white line here, which I looked up online. This thing goes under the dash, and I was trying to figure out where it's supposed to go, if maybe there was an HVAC or something, HVAC control box unplugged, but apparently the 2003 Marauders had like a air actuated e-brake or something, and the 2004s don't have it, but they left this line there. So basically this is a free vacuum line pass through the firewall. So a lot of guys will use that for an aftermarket boost gauge, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So once we got this thing running, it's just capped off for now, but I'll hook this into there, and then under the dash we can have our aftermarket boost gauge. Intake is back on, mass airflow sensor is plugged in. We drained out all of the bad fuel out of this thing. There was probably 2.5 gallons of literal apple juice looking fuel. I then put in 5.5 gallons of fresh 93 and then flushed it a little bit more until it started coming out clear. Then hooked up our Marauder fuel line to our Cobra fuel rails. The Marauder fuel rail comes in right here. We probably could have used that too, but that's over on the mess of a bench over there. Got 6 or 6.5 quarts of break-in oil. Well, maybe 6 because a half quart of it spilled out on the ground here when I didn't realize that on the oil filter relocation, there's a little access port there. So plugged that, cleaned up the mess, and primed the oil system. Got about 2 quarts into the system. That should go to the fuel pump and all these lines first. And actually, if you listened really close, you could hear the lifters kind of getting oil while that thing was running. So we should have almost immediate oil pressure when this thing starts, which is good. And I've got my gauge hooked up here for when when the time does come to start this thing. But for now, it's time to maybe triple check everything one more time, get in the car, or I guess reach through the window since I don't have to hit a clutch in this thing, crank this thing over on the key, and make sure that it sounds good. Just a quick sanity check in the car. Got HP tuners pulled up here. Got a log going, and it looks like it appears we did our intake air temp sensor correctly. 74 degrees, which is about the temperature in the garage right now. Map sensor looks like it's reading. Let's see if I wired in my TPS correctly. Oh yeah. I don't know what the numbers mean, but it's doing something. We have got a go pedal. All right, time to stop procrastinating. Let's crank this thing over. Woo! The nerves are going. Oh yeah. Can hear it build pressure. Don't see or smell any leaks. All right, here goes nothing. Woo! Oh, it sounded good. Woo! Nice even compression. You can actually hear it firing out of the headers. Oh, I like that. Any leaks? Not yet. Let's do it one more time for good measure. Woo! Sounds good. Ha ha ha! Yes! For the first time in at least 7 years, this car not only has a new motor in it, but it's cranked over under its own power. I mean, I don't know how else it would crank over, but I'm excited. All right, you guys should be too. This is proof that once you drop the motor in and it's physically bolted in, there is still a heap load of work to do, even if the motor originally belonged in the car, which this one did not. The rat's nest of wiring and everything that still has labels on it, and just the overall disarray of the engine bay right now is a testament to how much work I've put in this video. And I say it like that because I'm ending this video now. It is late tonight. There's still a couple things that I need to do. Right now the car is open headers, which means the O2 sensor is right at the collector, which means if we started it, it would pull in fresh air and not get a correct reading. So I gotta get something on the end of those collectors so that we can make sure we get good O2 sensor readings. I think I got some stuff in the trunk or in the exhaust parts bin. We gotta hook the injectors back up. We gotta get coolant in this thing. And maybe a couple other fluids, but there's some final checks I want to do. I want to make sure my head's right. More importantly, this garage is a complete disaster after the absolute thrash the last couple days. And I want to go at this with a clean head and make sure that if I do need tools, I know where they are and I know where they are quickly. Plus, tomorrow's Thursday, AKA Friday Junior. So if this thing starts and runs well, we'll crack open a beer. And if it doesn't run well, we will also crack open a beer. It's a win-win. We're gonna be drinking either way. But the fact that it cranked over, sounded beautiful, didn't make any bad noises, no pistons crashing into valves, no ticking, anything like that is a really good sign. I've primed the oil system. There's a couple little things left to do, and hopefully, with any luck, this thing is running. And man, I'm excited for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you liked the video. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to see this thing fire up, and for all the other stuff we have coming on the channel. Catch you guys in the next one.